Darkness does not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it comes as a whisper, a promise of change, a chance to outplay fate, a voice that tells you you're smarter than the others, you can beat the system. In the nightmare galaxy of Warhammer 40,000, that whisper belongs to Tzeentch, the changer of ways. And the most terrifying thing about him is how reasonable he can sound. At first, in the pantheon of the Chaos Gods, the others wear their monstrosity openly. Khorne is blood and rage, a roaring engine of slaughter. Nurgle is rot and despair, wrapping you in a putrid parody of comfort. Slaanesh is excess and obsession, a bottomless pit of sensation that starts as pleasure and ends as ruin. Tzeentch feels different. On the surface, he is the god of change, ambition, magic, destiny. He's the one who offers a way out, a path upward. The idea that you, specifically you, can rewrite your fate. That is why so many people instinctively rate him as the least bad. He seems like the chaos god of progress, planning, of cleverness. Surely that must be better than mindless slaughter or rotting away in a plague-ridden swamp of misery. But that instinct is exactly where the horror begins. Tzeentch is not the god who rips your body apart in one glorious instant. He is the god who keeps what you want, just out of reach forever. The god of promises, of plans, of almost, of dangling hope in front of you like a key you will never quite grasp. He is also the god who will tear you down the moment you become predictable, stable, or useful in the wrong way. To understand why he is every bit as terrible as the others, and in many ways worse, we have to look past the comforting mask of change and stare into the heart of the architect of fate. Tzeentch is the chaos god of change, sorcery, intrigue, ambition, and destiny. In the lore, he is called the changer of ways, the great conspirator, the architect of fate, the weaver of destinies. He listens to every prayer for more. More power, more knowledge, more freedom from the cage of your current life. On paper, that sounds almost uplifting. Change, growth, breaking free from stagnation. Compared to a skull throne made of corpses, it's easy to think, this is the good one. But Tzeentch is not the god of fulfilled hope. He is the god of hope itself, weaponized. He gravitates to people who want things desperately, the oppressed who want justice, the ambitious who want power, the curious who want forbidden knowledge. He never shows up saying, serve chaos. He whispers, you deserve better. You can outthink this prison. You can win. And then he makes sure the win is always one move further away, where the other chaos gods are brutally honest about what they are. Tzeentch is built on uncertainty. Khorne wants skulls. Nurgle wants decay and resignation. Slaanesh wants heightened sensation in any form. If you lean fully into their domains in a twisted way, you can actually find a kind of horrible peace. You know what they want from you, and the closer you get to that ideal, the more fulfilled you feel. With Tzeentch, there is no such peace. He wants schemers, liars, manipulators, paranoids. He wants people who would cut his throat if they could. Absolute loyalty bores him. Stable devotion offends him. If you are dependable, if you just want to serve and be valued, you are fundamentally uninteresting to the changer of ways. So if you prove you are stable, reliable, and utterly devoted, he will break that, just to see what happens. He is often compared to a shark. He cannot stop moving. He cannot accept stasis. If, somehow, he won the eternal great game between the chaos gods, if he eliminated Khorne, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, and stood alone, his own nature would force him to sabotage that victory. Either he would tear himself apart trying to change the fact that he had won, or he would create new rivals just to inject chaos back into the system. Even his own self-interest is not reliable. The other chaos gods can be counted on to act in ways that benefit their domain. Tzeentch will happily sabotage his own position if it makes things more complicated, more unstable, more interesting. Imagine serving something that cannot be depended on to act in its own best interest, let alone yours. You are not just a pawn in his game. You are a pawn in a game whose rules change mid-move, and the act of changing the rules is more important than who wins. This is why his followers live under a constant sword of Damocles. The most terrifying part of serving Tzeentch isn't punishment when you fail. It's that you might succeed, and he will destroy you anyway, because your success has become a fixed point he can't tolerate. If you want to see how despicable Tzeentch truly is, you don't have to invent hypotheticals. The Thousand Suns Legion is already his cautionary tale. Before they fully fell to chaos, the Thousand Suns were a legion of psychers, space marines whose minds burned bright in the warp. But they suffered a terrible curse known as the Flesh Change. At random, warriors would twist into mindless abominations of flesh, sprouting uncontrollable mutations. No one could cure it, not the Emperor, not the finest human sorcerers. Desperate to save his sons, their Primarch, Magnus the Red, made a bargain. He traded part of himself to a warp entity that promised to fix the curse. That entity was an aspect of Tzeentch. On the surface, the curse eased. The Legion had a brief moment of stability. That was the bait. What Magnus didn't realize was that he had effectively signed the entire Legion over to the Changer of Ways, the god who caused the disease, had now sold them the cure. Later, after the Legion had fully dedicated itself to Tzeentch and fled into the madness of the Eye of Terror, the mutations came back, worse than ever. Warriors devolved into gibbering chaos spawn, twisted beyond recognition. In response, the Legion's greatest sorcerer, Ahriman, attempted a grand spell to save his brothers once and for all. This became the infamous rubric of Ahriman. The spell worked and ruined them. Those with strong psychic power survived, their sorcery amplified. The rest of the Legion had their bodies reduced to dust, their souls trapped forever inside sealed suits of armor, mindless, hollow automatons obeying the few sorcerers who remained. The flesh change stopped, yes, but only because there was no longer any flesh to change. Tzeentch did exactly what he always does. He caused the problem. He sold the solution, and the solution damned his followers eternally. People sometimes compare him to a predatory system that manufactures crises and then profits off the cures. He will break your legs, then offer you a crutch at a price you can't afford, then demand your soul as collateral when you inevitably fail to pay him back. And this isn't unique to the Thousand Suns. Every deal with Tzeentch carries that poison. You might ask him for power and he will give you sorcerous strength, along with mutations that make you less than human. Ask him for protection from change and he might freeze you in a suit of armor for eternity. Ask him for a way out of one fate and he will drag you into another, one that serves his design, not yours. Even loyalty is no shield. He abandons you when you fail, and he plots against you when you succeed. There is no correct way to serve him, because what he wants changes constantly, often contradicting itself. What pleased him yesterday may offend him today. What earned his favor in one scheme might ruin you in the next, because a butterfly flapped its wings on the far side of the galaxy, and that tiny change amused him. With Khorne, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, the bargain is horrifying but clear. Kill in Khorne's name, and he rewards your martial fury. Spread plague in Nurgle's name, and he grants you a twisted, rotting immortality and freedom from fear. Drown yourself in ever-escalating excess for Slaanesh, and you will feel something, always, until your nerves burn out. Tzeentch offers no such clarity. You may dedicate your entire life to his service, sacrifice everything, outplay rivals, survive impossible odds, only to be randomly reduced to a mindless chaos spawn because that outcome now serves a different, better timed plan, or because you had become too stable, too predictable, a stone in the river he needed to erode. This is why many call him the god of false hope. He is the one who will let you see the ladder, climb it, fight others on every rung, bleed and claw your way to the top, and then kick the ladder over, laugh and move the top somewhere else. You never arrive. You never rest. You never know what you are actually working toward. So what does it mean to exist in a world shaped by Tzeentch? It means there are no rules you can rely on. In a realm devoted to Khorne, you know that strength and violence dominate, and weakness is death. In Nurgle's gardens of rot, you know everything decays, and acceptance is the only refuge. In Slaanesh's domains, you know everything is temptation and sensation, and every desire will be fed until it destroys you. In Tzeentch's kingdoms, the rules exist only long enough to hurt you when they change. His followers are not a brotherhood of warriors, or a family of plague-ridden devotees, or a circle of fellow hedonists. They are a nest of vipers. Every cultist, every sorcerer, every daemon is a schemer whose natural language is betrayal. Serving him is like climbing an infinite corporate ladder in a company where the org chart changes every morning. And the reward for reaching the executive suite is getting stabbed in the back, demoted, or transformed into a screaming mass of flesh the moment your position becomes too secure. Even on the grander scale of the galaxy, he plays the same game. When any faction, chaos or otherwise, gains too much momentum, he destabilizes it. If one chaos god begins to dominate, Tzeentch will undercut that god's schemes, not out of altruism, but because a clear, lasting victory is too much like stasis. Even when his own forces are winning, he will sabotage them if the outcome becomes too settled. He is the built-in self-destruct mechanism of the setting's status quo. That's why some fans describe him as almost chaotic neutral on a cosmic scale. Less a villain with a clear agenda, and more a force of entropy that refuses to let anything, even chaos, solidify for too long. But from the point of view of mortals, the difference between neutral force of change and actively malicious god doesn't matter. In practice, the result is the same: suffering. He encourages paranoia. Imagine a galaxy-wide surveillance state straight out of 1984 or the worst days of political witch hunts. Neighbors informing on neighbors, everyone watching everyone else. Loyalty tests that never end. Tzeentch would adore that. A society where everyone is second-guessing everyone, where trust dies, conspiracies breed like bacteria in a petri dish. He also blurs the line between sanity and madness. Try to truly understand a being made of contradictions, a mind that can hold mutually exclusive plans, identities, and emotional states simultaneously across time. Try to map the logic of his schemes when he has both the urge to change and the paradoxical desire to change even that urge. You end up with something closer to a Lovecraftian horror than a conventional god. Not evil in a human sense, but so alien that any attempt to comprehend it breaks you. And yet, there are always people who convince themselves that they will be the exception. They look at the brutality of Khorne, the filth of Nurgle, the depravity of Slaanesh, and think, I'm not like those followers. I'm clever. I'll use Tzeentch, not the other way around. I'll serve him just enough to get what I want, then walk away. That thought, that little spark of arrogance, is his favorite door into your soul. Because the moment you start ranking evils, the moment you decide that one of them is least bad and therefore safer, you are already thinking the way he wants you to think. You are grading monstrosities, negotiating with them, telling yourself a story in which you can stay in control of what cannot be controlled. You are, without realizing it, participating in a Tzeentchian psyop. So, is Tzeentch just as bad as the other chaos gods? In some ways, he is worse. Khorne will kill you quickly, in rage and glory. Nurgle will smother you in rot, but at least he offers a grotesque, honest comfort. Slaanesh will drag you down through ecstasy into oblivion, and you will feel every step. Tzeentch will keep you thinking you can escape. Long after you are already trapped, he is the rust on every promise, the fine print on every miracle, the shifting ground under every hard-won victory. He does not simply break your body, he corrodes your sense of reality. He attacks the part of you that believes in cause and effect. in stable rules, in the idea that effort leads to predictable outcomes. To follow him is to live under permanent uncertainty, unsure if your God wants you to succeed or fail, unsure if the gift he has given you is a blessing, a trap, or both, unsure if the change you've been fighting for is even real, or just another step in a loop that brings you back to where you started, only more broken. And yet, people will keep falling for him, because as long as there is frustration, ambition, fear of stagnation, and the desperate desire to break out of the cage of your current life, there will always be a part of you that listens when a voice in the dark says, "You're different, you're smarter, you can beat the game." That is how the changer of ways ensnares you, not by being overtly cruel from the start, but by offering you the one thing you want most, then turning that hope into a weapon. In a universe full of obvious monsters, Tzeentch is the one that smiles like opportunity. Now I want to hear from you. When you look at the galaxy of Warhammer 40,000, where do you rank Tzeentch among the Chaos Gods? And why?